Now, your Northern Quest Sports Desk.
We're almost a third of the way into June, and we still have no idea who this Mariners team really is. There's a squad that stumbled out of the gates and lost 12 of 16 in May. Then the shinier side of the coin wins in 9 of 10, outscoring opponents 72-24 in those games, getting back to 500. I had a chance to sit down with Gabe to talk about why I love stepping to the mic and what us reporters do that ruins his fun. The arena was popping during the game, especially when you could tell that this game was Gonzaga's. Look, Zag fans have left arenas like this disappointed in past years. Not this time. In essence, the Hawks, in hopes of improving their roster, signed the lesser of two players. Don't sign Kaepernick. He's a starter in this league. Let's go with Austin Davis because he's obviously not. Well, one thing I've wondered today is how Ali would be received in 2016. Would we embrace the showmanship and the flair or criticize him for his brash, unapologetic approach? Sadly, I don't think we'd enjoy a modern-day Ali the way we appreciate him 35 years after his final fight. It was Mike Leach's words that really had everybody's attention. He had two separate rants Saturday after their loss to Boise State and again on Monday, calling out his team for a lack of toughness. Well, he and his coaching staff backed it up by cranking up the intensity this past week in practice. While the Cougs did start slow today, it was clear by the end of the game that Mike Leach got his message across. This year, some big names had trouble making it to the second week. Top seed Villanova, gone. Duke, one of the trendy picks heading into the dance, bounced by South Carolina. Another 2 seed in Louisville, also out. Talk about the great stories in recent Gonzaga history. He is one of them. The kid with the buzz cut and the fun bench celebrations, now with the man bun and the handshakes and everything like that. It's amazing that somebody that so rarely gets on the floor is so well thought of and so loved and such a big part of the program.
Where does it come from, the ability to continue to get back up and push through? And, you know, we've seen you, get hammered out there.
It's simple. I like catching passes in front of like 60,000
But not everybody can
people.
do that, though.
Well, that's why everybody doesn't do that. You know
So
what I mean?
what
That's
makes
why,
you different? That's
that's
what
why
I'm saying.
everyone doesn't play in the Pac-12.
I know, but why are you able to do that? I would like to catch touchdown passes in front of 60,000 people. I couldn't do that. I'd be broken in half.
Soft, man.
You're right. That's what I'm saying, but you're not. So where does that come from?
Have you ever lost to a TV guy in a game of horse before?
Nope, and I'm not going to do it now.
First time for everything.
And I'm not doing it now.
Let's play Zags, all right? Z-A-G-S.
All right, let's play. Glass work.
Starting like that. This might not last very long.
1 foot. Hey, we got to run that back. Come on, Alex.
No, I got one more letter.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, run that back.
All
Run
right,
that back. That was a warm-up.
Run it back.
Take 2.
Not one of their finest performances, though.
No, not a perfect night by any stretch, and actually included some bad news before the game. We'll get to that in a second. Zags playing 3 of their last 4 regular season games in the kennel. San Francisco put 80 on them last time. Most GU has allowed this season. Opening minutes, more of that. Jordan Bertino off the kick out. Don's up by 5. Ronnie Boyce on the drive. Tough finish there. 16-11 USF. Midway through the half, Chase Foster from deep, still at 5. They shot 50% in the first half. Meanwhile, Zags sloppy on the other end. 6 turnovers in less than 11 minutes to start the game. Mark Few not loving what he saw early on.
Thought we did not play great, especially attention to detail-wise in that first half. So it can really cut you up if you're not ready to go. And they made some shots and deserve a lot of credit for that.
That being said, Zags still led by 7 at the half. Shemek Karnowski had 13 points in the opening 20 minutes. They flipped the script right away in the second. We've been talking about their defense, one of the best in the nation. They turned it up. Karnowski and Jonathan Williams protecting the rim, held the Dons to 8 of 34 shooting in the second, and Nigel Williams-Goss doing what Nigel Williams-Goss does. He just took over, had 2 separate 8-0 runs for Gonzaga, a total of 16 points in a span of less than 5 minutes, went 10 of 14, 4 for 6 from 3, a 30-point night from him. Remember, he dropped 36 at USF in their first meeting, and Karnowski chipped in with a cool 23. They combined for 53 points. That's what USF had when those two exited the game with just shy of 5 minutes left. After an ugly start, this one ended up being business as usual. Zags pulled together for a 96-61 win.
And we're joined by Darnay Tripp to explain that story for us.
Yeah, in a much smaller venue, an event with a fraction of the spotlight. One Zag ascended beyond any of her competition and did so for a team that didn't even exist at the start of the year. Thanks to her incredible talent, GU earned a little bit of revenge.
It's almost artistic. I would kind of compare it to dance in a certain capacity. There's something very, very beautiful and fulfilling about being able to get to the top of a climb. It was something that I really felt effortless doing. And I loved that it was such a whole body and whole mind kind of activity. It really takes kind of everything to be in the moment and to be able to get to the top of a wall.
For some, the first step in discovering their potential is making peace with their limitations.
I was never really much of an athlete.
Hannah Tolson knows that from experience.
I was pretty uncoordinated, so I never really found a sport that suited me.
Thanks to the insistence of a middle school athletic director,
Everybody had to try a sport.
and a nearby rock climbing gym,
Our middle school was about 5 minutes away.
she found her passion and discovered just how good an athlete she really is.
I tried that and I fell in love with it.
That's how Hannah began her ascent.
The rest is history, I guess.
When the Phoenix native clipped in for the first time, she did so with no expectation that a successful career in the sport would follow.
I thought it was kind of too old to jump into it and to really achieve something great.
It took just 2 years to dispel that notion. As a 14-year-old, Hannah placed 8th at Youth Nationals.
That kind of planted the seed in me, like, oh my gosh, this could be something that I could really do and be good at.
Even though her success continued through high school, when it came time to pick a college, competitive climbing wasn't a factor.
Gonzaga checked all my boxes, I guess apart from having a climbing team, and it took me about a week of college to realize that I really wasn't ready to give up competitive climbing.
As a freshman, Hannah completed her final year on the youth circuit. With that stage of her career winding down, she came up with a plan.
We need to start a climbing team.
In order to compete in USA Climbing's Collegiate Nationals, you have to belong to a club team. Before Hannah's arrival, Gonzaga did not have one. This year, Hannah changed that. In March, soon after forming the club, she competed for the first time as its lone representative. Hannah won. Shortly thereafter, she earned an invite to nationals. Meanwhile, a different Gonzaga team was making its own historic run.
Gonzaga University will compete for the national championship against North Carolina.
With Mark Few's program making its first run to the Final Four, Hannah followed the Zags to her hometown, where she watched alongside hundreds of fellow students as her school came excruciatingly close to claiming a national title.
I was really sad for the guys. I know what it feels like to work really hard for something and to not have it come to fruition.
But not long after the loss to UNC,
2 minutes.
Hannah realized,
oh my God.
she could help Gonzaga claim some measure of revenge.
This might be another sort of Zags and Tar Heels rematch right now.
Just as she expected, Hannah's toughest competition in the Sport Climbing Nationals was Carrie Scott from the University of North Carolina.
By the finals day of nationals, when I was sitting in first and she was sitting in second, I was like, oh my God, this could really happen.
Since Hannah was a top qualifier, she simply had to complete the climb in finals in order to win.
Up until that point, I hadn't even really let myself consider winning to be a possibility, because I felt like that would really, it would really stress me out.
Which was the last thing she needed.
When I'm about to compete, I have this mental battle in myself with where 1 minute I'm fine and ready to climb, and the next minute I want to curl up into a ball. So it's an emotionally exhausting experience.
Hannah climbed last, with 22 other competitors going before her, which meant waiting over 3 hours for her turn in earshot of the arena.
Towards the end of the order, you start to hear more cheers from the crowd because people are getting up higher on the climb.
The last climber before Hannah was her Tar Heel rival, who made it all the way to the top.
That's kind of when I realized, all right, game on, I have to do this thing too now.
By the time Hannah began her ascent on April 29th in San Diego, the hardest part was already behind her.
Right before I climb, I'm always really nervous, but kind of right when I get on the wall, this kind of calm comes over me. and I try and just kind of go on autopilot, take it one step at a time, one move at a time.
Staying focused on nothing more than what's next, until she locked in the final clip
I started crying.
and secured a national championship.
It's been kind of years of near misses for me, years of sad car rides home and, you know, I should have done this or I could have done this. It was retribution, I would say.
Claiming the title for herself and for her school.
I love representing Gonzaga, and I think it might be part of the reason why I was able to kind of pull it together and take the win this time.
Last month, Hannah Tolson gained a clear understanding of her potential by reaching the pinnacle of collegiate climbing. In 3 years, she will set her sights much higher. Rock climbing was added to the list of events in the 2020 Summer Olympics.
I have to think, like, why not me? That's kind of how I approach everything. I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in what everyone else is doing and how awesome everyone else is. So, I mean, why not me, you know? It's happened before, why not again?
And I love that attitude, and she has earned the right to have that kind of attitude with what she has accomplished thus far. There were 67 women's programs at Nationals, many of which had a dozen or more climbers. Of those 67, Gonzaga placed 18th on the strength of her performance.
That's amazing.
Just her. She's hoping to grow the club next year and hopefully have some company when they go to the events next season.
Well, from the footage you showed from our drone, Sky 2, it looks like she has some pretty wonderful places to practice out here.
There's no question about it. If you haven't been to Rocks of Sharon, it is a hike. It is quite literally a hike, but it is gorgeous views of the valley, views of the Palouse, and if you're a rock climber, you gotta love it.